Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to everyone to yet another session of Weekend with Wisdom. This is part 2 of Bhagavad Gita chapter 4 sessions wherein Shri Kalyan Kumarji is speaking on Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Kalyan Kumarji, I welcome you once again. Viewers, if you have any question, please post them in Q&A box. Kalyan Kumarji will be taking towards the end of the session. Kalyan Kumarji, please go ahead.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Padyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krito Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः ऋकारस्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्तन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् ॐ श्रीभगवानुवाच इमं विवस्वते योगं प्रोक्तवानहमव्ययम् विवस्वान्मनवे प्राह मनुरिक्ष्वाकवे ब्रवीत् एवं परम्परा प्राप्तमिमं राजर्षयो विदुः सकाले नेह महता योगो नष्टः परन्तप स एवायं मया तेद्य योगः प्रोक्तः पुरातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं हि एतदुत्तमम् अर्जुन उवाच अपरं भवतो जन्म परं जन्म विवस्वतः कथमेतद्विजानीयां त्वमादौ प्रोक्तवानिति श्रीभगवानुवाच बहूनि मे व्यतीतानि जन्मानि तव चार्जुन तान्यहं वेद सर्वाणि न त्वं वेत्थ परन्तप अजोऽपि सन् व्ययात्मा भूतानामीश्वरोऽपि सन् प्रकृतिं स्वामधिष्ठाय सम्भवाम्यात्ममायया यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम् परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे अजोऽपि सन् अव्यय आत्मा भूतानां ईश्वरोऽपि सन् प्रकृतिं स्वामधिष्ठाय संभवामि आत्ममायया. Here Sri Krishna Bhagavan is presenting himself as Ishvara, not as Devaki Putra, but as Ishvara. That is why he says, I am Ajaha. I am not born. Birth means there was an absence or a prior non-existence of something in time, and it surfaces in time and stays for a period of time. That is what typically we see when there is a birth. Here Ishvara says, I am actually unborn, Ajaha. But the question will be, you are seen to be born to Devaki and Vasudeva. But you say that you are unborn and you don't undergo any change, Avyaya Atma. And I am the Ishvara is what you are saying. So how is it tenable? Would be the question. More importantly, we raised an important question about what or who is God. Should we ask who is God or what is God? when we are talking Vedanta, how is God looked at in Vedanta Shastra? Because we keep hearing Vedanta is everything is consciousness and all that, correct? That is what is the claim of what Vedanta is. So God and all is more dogmatic, ritualistic. So why should I pray to God? These are kind of questions that are typically associated with modern Vedanta. In fact, some of the other acharyas also mistook our sampradaya to be meaning that there is no God or Ishvara. That is why some other sampradayas, some darshanas came, because they thought Shankaracharya is misrepresenting. He is taking posture as a similar to Buddhist, because we hear words like Maya and all that. So Maya, Bhagavan himself is using here, Atma Mayaya. Actually, Shankaracharya doesn't use Maya and all substantially, but there is this notion because of which people had come out with the different sampradayas like Visishtadvaitam and all that. So what is the understanding? What is the vision of Vedanta about Bhagavan, Ishvara or God, however you want to use the term? Typically, God as a word has many connotations today, which we are better to avoid, because the moment you say God, what is our understanding? It is about some person who is sitting in heaven. Because of these Abrahamic traditions or religions, theological religions, they have given a meaning to God as somebody who looks like human, because God created humans just as a replica of himself, is what those religions say, at least some of them. Now immediately when we think of God, our thought goes to someone sitting in heaven. We can call the heaven by different names. Even Hindu religious people also, they can call it as Kailasha or Vaikunta or Golok, Vrindavan. Some name they give. But still the concept is that God is like a person who is sitting somewhere in heaven and all the time looking upon human beings and keep observing, is this guy doing the right thing or wrong thing? So some religions say God looks upon whether you do right or wrong. Some religions say God, all that matters to God is whether you believe in him or not. And it's always a him for many religions. Her and all is not allowed. Is this, I'm not criticizing or I'm just placing certain understanding in front of you, that's all. Now if this is the belief, our notion of God is centered around a personality. Even Hindu religion, the gunas are described. God has elephant head. Kali has, 51 skulls hanging around her neck. And then she has her tongue protruding outside. Like that, our religion also says, correct? So this is what is God. And God punishes or takes care depending on whether you worship or not. That is a belief. So don't take it as though that I am defining God here. Okay. Our belief is like that, is what I'm saying. That God either punishes or rewards based on whether you do right thing or wrong thing, or whether you believe in him or not, depending on which religion you follow. That is our notion. So that is the God the atheists are not willing to accept. They say, I don't believe that such a God exists. It is all nature only. How can somebody sitting in some heaven create me and all this, and also create all these differences in the world, make people suffer? That kind of a God doesn't exist. I don't subscribe to that view of God, is what atheists say. And many of us would actually concur with that view, that if this is what God is, then it leaves a lot to be desired about the God. Why should this God punish me for suppose I do a wrong thing? I have a liking on, say, a particular type of pen, and I am not able to get it. Either I am poor or I am not having access to get that kind of a pen. Some Parker pen, I go and steal it. Suppose. Then what does my mind say? If God punishes me for that, question will be, why did God create me and leave me in a position that I couldn't get this kind of a pen? Even if I am not in a position to get it, why did God give me that kind of a want or a liking for that pen? Right? Now this God, if such a God exists, then I have my reservations about this kind of a God. Because it wasn't my fault in the first place that I got this liking. It was not my fault that I didn't have the ability to purchase it. Then why should I be blamed? Why should God punish me for it? So a God as a person who is adjudicating right and wrong or my belief system is not a God that is acceptable for certain set of people. But what is Vedantic vision of God? Is this the God? Of course not, because this kind of a God is limited. One, the person is sitting in one place, means spatially the God is limited. If he is in heaven, at the same time he is not in hell, at the same time he is not in earth, at the same time he is not inside the sun. So he is spatially limited. He can also have an upadhi like us, a brain that can have a slightly better capacity, but not an infinite capacity. So intelligence wise that God has to be limited, spatially limited, object wise limited, because that God is different from me. So and then power wise also is limited. He can only do certain things, because suppose mosquito bites him, then what he does, I don't know. So God as a limited human-like entity, however big that God can be, is an incomplete God. But Shastra says Bhagavan or Ishvara is the one who creates and pervades this Jagat. Tat Srishtva Tadeva Anupravishyati. That is from a Srishti standpoint, from a creation standpoint, Ishvara, now I am switching from God to Ishvara, because if the God is all pervasive, he is the one who created and sustains by his presence. That God, let us call that God as Ishvara, because let us switch our understanding from what God is to this understanding. So better we call the name Ishvara, because it's not just the name, but we are switching the understanding of what is Bhagavan, Ishvara, God. So Where does this God or Bhagavan or Ishvara, now I will stick to only Ishvara, get the material to create this Jagat? If Ishvara is the Srishtikarta, the creator of this Jagat, that is what is Ishvara, isn't it? Otherwise, what is Ishvara means what? The one who created and sustains this Jagat, this world that I see here, is Ishvara. That's why even in Christianity, they call Ishvara as Karta, because he is the creator. In Indian translation, I am saying. So creation is a main thing and sustaining it. So that Ishvara cannot get the material from outside, because that material has to have been created by Ishvara only. So when Ishvara comes, if there is already material, the question will be who created that material. So a material's existence outside of Ishvara is untenable, is not an acceptable proposition for understanding an omnipresent Ishvara. So the Vedantic vision is Yatha Urnanabihi Shrijate Grinnate Cha. Like a spider spins a web from itself, lives in it and takes it back. Likewise, Ishvara is the one who manifests as this Jagat and resolves back into oneself or itself. That is the Srishti. For us, Srishti is, for us as in the Vedic vision, Srishti is only Avirbhavanam. The example on how this can happen, again we have to go back to the dream. In your dream, you spin the world, you live the dream, and you resolve it back unto yourself. So too, Ishvara is manifesting as Jagat and resolves it back. That is the Ishvara. So we have to understand. Now, what about all the other questions? If that is what is Ishvara, then why am I suffering? Should I even pray? By praying, is Ishvara going to give me anything? Because from what you are describing, it doesn't seem to be like a person. Then who am I praying to? All these questions also have to be answered. This chapter, Bhagavan answers all this. Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. Mamamartma anuvartante manushyaha partha sarvashaha. He is going to tell. You pray, whatever you pray, that prayer gets you a fruit or result, because I understand your prayer, and as an effect of that prayer, give you whatever you seek. So it is about what one seeks. Ishvara is neutral to everybody. All those he talks about. So to understand Bhagavan, Ishvara, this chapter has some very good shlokas. Now coming back, let us talk about that when we get to that shloka. But right now coming back, Ishvara ajaha avyaya atma sanne prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya. By my maya, I get myself into this Jagat. But when and why? And how? What makes Bhagavan come here? That is what in the next two slokas we started in the morning. It is being addressed. Yada yada hi dharmasya hanihi bhavati adharmasya abhyuttanam bhavati tada atmanam sujamyaham. Whenever dharma is impacted and adharma rises, I bring myself in. For what? Paritranaya sadhunam. To protect sadhus. Why? By protecting dharmi, only dharma is protected. Dharma rakshanam is about dharmi rakshanam. Followers of dharma have to be protected, encouraged. They should be given an environment to live a life of dharma. Then dharma grows. Sadhus have to be protected because they are vulnerable. Dharma needs an environment. That's why kings used to protect dharma. By building infrastructures and institutions, dharma doesn't get protected. They help to some extent. But the main thing is people have to be protected, taught about dharma. So paritranaya sadhunam, by teaching only it is protected. Dharma is protected. Bhagavan comes and teaches. Krishna, Rama, Acharya, everybody, the entire avatara is for sadhu rakshanam, not only by kshatriya protection but by teaching also. Dharma has to be taught. Vinashaya cha dushkritam, the dushkritikaraha, the dushkriti happens because of what? Non-understanding of dharma. So vinasha can be about the buddhi, the adharmika buddhi also can by destroying. But what is the effect that Bhagavan here says that he is trying to achieve? Dharma samsthapanartham. By well establishing the dharma. The dharma establishment happens by protection of dharmi, removing people who obstruct it. For that cause alone, I bring myself forth into my own creation. But when will he come? He or she, Bhagavan, Ishvara. Generally, in Puranas, these Devatas and Rishi Munis go to Mahavishnu or Parameshwara and then pray. Oh, in Bhuloka, poppies have increased. Dharma has come down in a big way. Therefore, we want you to take an avatara and protect. And then Mahavishnu or Parameshwara come and take birth. That is how Puranas talk about it. Why do they have to say that? Doesn't Mahavishnu or Ishvara not know what is? If Devatas can know, can Ishvara or Mahavishnu not even know about it? Why? Because what is being hinted there is the upadhi, the means that brings Bhagavan for avatara is prayer, collective prayer. So when dharma goes down, when people are not following dharma, the dharmis will feel, not only dharmis, even other people, not usual, even like half dharmis, will feel uncomfortable. A society which doesn't follow any norms or laws, when there is chaos, a lot of people will start getting worried. It's natural. Then they will start seeking help. When collectively there is a seeking of help, then Ishvara comes in, steps in. This is the vision. So what becomes the upadhi? It is the prayer. The prayer becomes the upadhi or karma, because of which this avatara takes place. So you have to understand. Now further, so this is okay. This is about avatara. Now the question, we have to go back to what is God, right? That Bhagavan continues here, says Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha tektva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. This is a wonderful shloka. Here Bhagavan says, the one who understands me, listen carefully, yo vetti, one who recognizes, one who cognizes, one who understands. What? Me janma karma divyam. So the divine birth actions, okay. What birth and actions? Okay, I understand that your birth is in some jail in Devaki's womb and all that, and your karma, you did some Mahabharata war, all that. Is that? No, tattvataha. What is the tattva behind this? What is the essence? What is the truth behind this birth? The one who knows this, veti, cognizes this, tektva deham punarjanma nayeti. That person doesn't get another birth. Mameti. And then what happens? That person gains me, reaches me. Hey Arjuna. So he gives a way how to reach Bhagavan. Very simple. Understand me and you will reach me. Understand the very essence of my action, my birth, who I am, you will reach me. But understanding something, how can one reach some place? Suppose I understand Pondicherry is a French colony. It has some beautiful beaches. It has one Rajiv Gandhi Marg and some Mahatma Gandhi statue, and there is a railway gate there. Suppose these are like things I understand. Some beautiful French houses. I've understood. I've gone through the Google map. Do I reach there? I don't. Or if suppose I understand a person, suppose a very close person, let's say, my own uncle who lives 2 streets down, not even far away. I understand that person very well. Okay. He is a good guy, good thinking guy. He works in this kind of organization. He is married and has 3 kids. Everything I understand about this person. By understanding that person, do I gain him? Even do I reach his place? No. Then, or is he saying after death you will come and join me in Vaikuntham? But that is not what here Bhagavan. See, either if you are taking Bhagavan as somebody with the form and all that, here Sri Krishna is talking. So, is that what it is? You will come if you understand Sri Krishna's birth. Because Janma Karma Chame Divyam has to be about Krishna only. It can't be about Mahavishnu in Vaikuntha. Correct? Because here Krishna is talking. Janma Karma Chame Divyam Evam Yo Vetti Tattvataha Tektva Deham Punarjanma Nayeti Mameti Sorjuna. Hey Arjuna, by understanding my Janma, whoever understands, cognizes, reaches me. That means the only way by understanding one can reach, the only possibility is if that person, whoever understands, is non-separate from Bhagavan. Suppose I have my glasses on my head. I was reading this newspaper and I had the long sight. So I have these glasses on. And then I fold the newspaper, start watching TV, put my reading glasses on my head. And I keep searching. Now have I lost those glasses? Yes, they are as though lost for me, because it is not useful to me at that time. It's not available. But now my wife comes and says, hey, you haven't lost it. It is there on your head. Have I got it? Gained it? Yes. But have I really gained it? No, because it was all the time with me. Tattvataha yaha vetti mameti. The one who understands, recognizes my nature, who I am, that person gains me. Brahmavid brahmaiva bhavati. How is it? How can Ishvara and me be same? You only said some time back today morning that Ishvara has all this Maya. He spins like magician all this world, and I am caught in this world, in the spin of Ishvara. You only mentioned Ishvara has such a Shakti, unlimited Shakti, who has the ability to know about every birth. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava tarjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetha parantapa. I know every birth, every detail, every plant, everything is known to me. That kind of a Bhagavan you are saying is same as me, and I gain because not separate from me. How is it possible? The question is, we have to understand what is Satyam, unchanging in this, and what is Mithya, what is changing. If the difference between me and Ishvara is only in the changing part, in the Mithya, and if the Swarupa is the same, then there is a possibility of oneness. Like a gold bangle, a gold chain, a gold tumbler are all the same from the standpoint of gold. Ishvara Upadhi in this Srishti is Jnanameva Upadhi. The very knowledge is Upadhi. It's in the form, there is no constraint for, it's an unconstrained knowledge. Sarvavitvam. Bhagavan Sarvajnaha. Ishvara knows everything. Sarvam Janati iti Sarvajnaha. And that Jnanam only, that is the Upadhi of Ishvara. That is why, how do we recognize Ishvara is in the form of Niyati, all orders. There is a conscious order at many levels. There is a biological order. There is a science. There is a conscious order. Okay. An eye functions like this. An ear functions like this across species. So there is a niyati. There is an etymological order, biological order, psychological order, physiological order, law of karma, physical order. chemical order. There is an order. In every level there is order. There is a niyati, and this is a conscious niyati. And that niyati is nothing but Ishvara. Sun keeps going. We don't know how long it has been there. Earth keeps going around the sun. Doesn't stop. If the earth was a little away, life couldn't have been possible. We would have got burnt. If earth doesn't spin around itself or go around the sun, the life would be very difficult. 1 second, I'm getting a phone call. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. So this order, niyati is Ishvara. We don't say niyati of Ishvara, but the order is how Ishvara is manifest. The whole intelligence, symbiotic existence is because of Ishvara, is Ishvara only. Look at how a life is. If I have to see something, so many things have to function. Light has to be there, it has to reflect on objects, it has to go through my retina, it has to go and work in the brain, and then I see something. So many things have been provided for me to see something. This can't be just a nature. There is a conscious, there is so many conscious things which are happening. Even if you say it is nature, but is it a conscious nature or an inert nature? If it is inert, how is it possible that my eye needed light and light was provided for? And how it has to traverse to my brain, how my brain has to function. All this, we say it is all evolution, but can a random evolution have so much of intelligence? And how is it sustained as a niyati? All that we have to bake in. We don't have a lot of time to discuss these, but at a very high level, we need to recognize that there is so much order, niyati, and Ishvara is in the form of that niyati. And once you understand that niyati, the conscious order, and in the form of jnanam, Ishvara, if you recognize that is what is Ishvara, then what is variable in it and what doesn't change? Like in a gold chain, gold bangle, golden tumbler, what doesn't change? The gold doesn't change. The name and form has changed, but the substance hasn't changed. If you leave the sarvajñatvam, the changing nature of niyati and all that, of the conscious order, what doesn't change in all of that is consciousness or awareness. If Ishvara has to introduce Ishvara, the Ishvara also has to say, I am Ishvara. And that I rests in awareness. And in Jiva also, the I has to be awareness only. The I, every cognition rests in awareness. When I say I am talking, there is talking consciousness. When I say I walk, there is walking consciousness. When I say I am seeing the body, there is body sight consciousness. When I say I am thinking of Bhagavan, I have a Bhagavan thinking consciousness. When I see Bhagavan, I have a Bhagavan sight consciousness. There is an invariable presence of consciousness all through. When I have a deep sleep, I have a witness perception of my deep sleep because I can get up and say I slept. I was Sakshi for my sleep. There is not a moment, not an experience, not anything where there is no awareness involved. In fact, the existence of anything is proved because it is pervaded by consciousness. And Ishvara also lights to me because of consciousness only. Now, the invariable thing between Ishvara and oneself is consciousness. What is variable is the Upadhi, my Alpajñatvam, and Ishvara Sarvajñatvam. My smallness is incidental on me. The fullness is incidental on Ishvara. Because full and small are relative, or from standpoint perspective. But what is pervading this fullness and smallness is consciousness, which is Swarupa of Ishvara. Once somebody understands, cognizes this tattva, and is always rooted in that tattva, then that is called Jivan Mukti. That is what Bhagavan in this 9th shloka says, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tektva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. This Janma and karma has to be understood in the context of who I am from tattva perspective. It is only mithya has to be understood. That is why when it is tattva. Otherwise, I am born to Devaki and all. What is the tattva in it? So, tattvataha, the moment Bhagavan has said, we have to get into what is the essence of this karma and janma. So, this is like a Mahavakya only. Otherwise, by knowing somebody, how can I gain that person? And it is possible only if I am non-separate from that person. If I am one and the same with that Swarupa, that person as in Bhagavan Ishvara, only then I gain. I gain by knowledge. Because here knowledge only, Veti Tattvataha, is what Bhagavan says. By knowledge, what do you gain? You gain what you already have. Otherwise, after knowledge, you have to do something to gain it. Ignorance removal only is gained by knowledge. And if by removing ignorance, if you are going to gain Bhagavan, that means you are Bhagavan. And gain as in Mameti is what Bhagavan says. When he reaches me, it's not gaining as in, notional gain. So that means you, by knowing I can go and reach somebody, means what? That reaching is only in terms of knowing knowledge. Then Vitaraga Vayakrodaha Manmaya Mamupashritaha Bahavo Jnana Tapasaha Puta Madbhavamagataha. So, question now is it so easy? If you are only talking about knowledge, then anybody can gain a knowledge, correct? What is that? There is no qualification needed. You just need to understand. Some basics are needed. Suppose you need Sanskrit, yeah, I will go and learn Sanskrit. Suppose you say this needs some level of logical thinking, I'll go and learn some logical thinking, some fundamentals. Is that enough? Suppose I need to learn higher secondary mathematics. Then what do I need? Some mathematics fundamental, then high school math, calculus, all that. Then okay, then I am ready. Is just an intellectual preparedness enough? That is what Bhagavan is addressing here. It is not only here the intellectual part is very less. It's a very easy thing. because we are talking about you. Vedanta is talking about you. And knowing me should be the easiest thing. Then why is it difficult? Because emotion plays a big role. There is a lot of notions, complexities, psychological elements in play because of other vasanas and samskaras and all that. My mind is not poised, is not in a state where this knowledge can easily be cognized. So a certain preparedness is required for a mind to cognize this, because what are you trying to gain? All pervasiveness, infiniteness, lack of limitation, limitlessness, spatial limitlessness, time-wise limitlessness. These are not easy things. So if that has to be gained a certain level of smallness that you associate yourself, you take yourselves to be, has to be negated, means there will be a lot of resistance and pressure, and your mind's ability to be able to cognize such a thing is constrained. So a certain emotional qualification is needed for a person to be in a position to cognize this jnanam. So vitaraga bhaya krodhaha. A prepared mind is essential. What is the preparation here? Raga bhaya krodha vita. The desire, fear and hatred or anger. Actually, the desire becomes anger or fear. Desire only transforms. When I have a desire on something, if it gets obstructed, depending on what obstructs it, I either get angry or I get a fear. If the obstruction is less strong or less powerful than me, then it is anger. If it is more powerful, then I get a fear. So raga bhaya krodhaha. These emotional things, the root is raga. For somebody to whom these desires have reasonably subsided, one is not all the time anxious, looking out for things, some pleasure to hold on to keep oneself happy. That's what we do all the time, no? We discussed in the morning, keep going after pleasure. Because I always see myself unhappy, I'm unhappy, what is this? Life is so boring. I am sad. If I get this, then probably I'll be happy. Last time I had food in this restaurant, I was very happy. Wow, that masala dosa was so good. Next time I'll eat, I'll be very happy. And you go there, that day masala dosa doesn't taste good. Then you are again unhappy. So we keep looking for where can I get. Keep going, getting hurt. You get anger, again you get some pleasure sometime anger. So that is the samsara. And keep running after, because it's not that you always failed. There were times when you had success. You did taste some pleasure. Out of 4 times, 2 times masala dosa was good. So the taste was enjoyable for few minutes. And the restaurant ambience was so good. Half an hour, 1 hour we had joyful time. Now that desire keeps me going, correct? But that intermittent pleasures, and then a stretch of unhappiness, then some pleasure, then stretch of unhappiness as in like what? Some, not being so enthusiastic, happy. You just keep striving for those moments of pleasures. That person, he is not available for this knowledge, because this knowledge needs a certain dedication, certain time, and you have to give yourself. So Vitaraga Bhayakrodaha, the one from whom these longings have subsided substantially. Completely it won't go until Jnanam comes. But one who has qualified for this Jnanam, Manmayaha, Mamupashritaha, who recognizes that gaining Ishvara is what is going to liberate me. That kind of a person, those kind of people, what did they do? Bahavaha, many of those, Jnana Tapasa, by the tapas which is in the form of Jnanam, Putaha, got purified, Madbhavam Agataha, they have gained me. So he tells Arjuna, reaching me is not new. But why should somebody reach me? For being freed of limitation. That we will see little later. Now, how do they gain? Jnana tapasa. There are many types of tapas. There is a japa. You can do continuous japa. That is a tapas. You can do continuous meditation. Tapas. You can stand on one leg for hours or days. Tapas. Many kind of tapas. But here jnana tapasa, this vichara alone is tapas. By jnanam, jnanameva tapas. By this, so people don't understand this, that jnana itself is tapas. Tapasa brahma vijijnasasva, Upanishad says. And he goes and does vichara and comes back. Annam brahmet ivyajanat. He goes, does tapas, and comes back, says Annam is Brahman. Like that, in Bhrigu, it is said. So Jnanam is tapas. Pursuit of Jnanam is itself tapas. The vichara is tapas. And by that Jnana tapas, there are people who have gained me. But the question is, if gaining you is the final objective for everybody, you as an Ishvara, Arjuna will ask that question, no? Gaining you is the ultimate gain because you are everything. Hey Ishvara, if you are everything, everyone would want to gain you only. And you should give everybody that fullness. So why only some people? You said Bahavo Jnana Tapasa Bhutaha Madbhava Magataha, only select people have gained you. Why not everybody? Can be the question. So in the next verse, Bhagavan says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushyaah partha sarvashaha. This is another very important shloka on prayer. The question that everybody asks, why is God favoritism? Why is God showing favoritism? Is he like an uncle? Only for those who pray, the God will give. People who go to temple gain benefit is what your religion is saying. Why should God show favoritism to people who only go to temple? Why can he not give somebody who doesn't go to temple? What is wrong? Everybody you are saying is God's children or God himself. Why is there so much partiality? Why is somebody born as poor, someone born as rich? Here, God has no Vaishamya, Naigrinya kind of dosha, that there is no favoritism. He has Niyati and he is neutral to everyone. It is your own action, karma, prayer which gets you the result. Ishvara just supports everything. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. However, if whatever way you seek me, come to me, tans tataiva bhajamya. I fulfill your wish the way you want. What you ask, you get. I am there all the time for you to tap. My grace is there in everything. I am the substratum. Ishvara is saying, not I. Ishvara says, I am the substratum of everything. My grace is there everywhere all the time. It's for you to tap into it. You pray, you gain somebody else's. So it's not only praying, even tapping the grace through many, even a work is worship. A dharma, a person who doesn't even believe in God but goes by dharma gains. Because niyati, you don't have to figuratively give a form to God and say this is God. Dharma is God. Niyati is Bhagavan. And Astika is not the one in our thing who believes in God or Ishvara. Astika is the one who believes in Dharma. Vaidika Dharma is Astika. So even Ishvara belief, trust, Shraddha is not an essential thing to be an Astika. Because Ishvara is in the form of Niyati only. Ishvara is omnipresent as a grace, as the substratum, as the support for everything. Giving a form for your convenience, you can do it. But it is not essential that only in a farm or temple you have to worship or you have to do a prayer. If it is convenient, it helps. Obviously, it is good for you to do that. Here Bhagavan says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamya. You are free to invoke me in any which way. I am always available. You want me, I give myself. You want only a limited benefit, I give that too. You want removal of your current dukkha, some small things, you ask me for it, I give. Because your prayer, it is your karma which is giving you that benefit. As a niyati, as a karma, law of karma, I support it. Everything is supported by me as Ishvara. Whether you recognize it or not, mama vatma anuvartante manushya partha he sarvashaha. He partha, whether one recognizes it or not, even the one who doesn't believe in me, the Bhagavan, in Niyati, one who is an Astika, one who is anti-God or a communist, it doesn't matter. So, mama vatma anuvartante manushya partha sarvashaha. So, it doesn't matter whether you believe in Ishvara or not, whether somebody is not trusting, is not a Shraddhavan, still because the person is seeking a completeness, knowingly or unknowingly, they are mama vatma eva anuvartante, they are after me, after the fullness. So like that Bhagavan ye yata mam prapadyante tans tataiva bhajamyaham mama vatma anuvartante manushya partha sarvashaha. I am neutral. It is for you to tap into me and gain whatever you need. What he says, we will see in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.